We introduce you to the new host of Kings Talk. He is Sam Betesh. We do that next here on Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. You'll win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I am Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. Worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly NHL podcast and YouTube show that wraps up the night in the NHL. Obviously, it'll start the first night of the regular season. And, of course, a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. I am very excited about today's show because for the first time, we are going to welcome in a new guest. And he is someone that I sort of grew up with together on the radio. He has worked various roles on various shows that I've been a part of. Longtime co-host and radio brother at the Fox Sports Radio Network, and now the new host of Kings Talk on 710 ESPN and wherever you get your streaming from the LA Kings app as well, the 710 app. He is Sam Betesh. He is wearing his glorious Silver Kings jacket that I am so envious of and looks so great on him. Sam, it's a little surreal to have you on this show talking about the Kings, but I'm super excited about it. I'm really excited about this opportunity for you. How are you doing? And thanks for joining us.
Eddie, I couldn't be doing any better. And maybe you and I understand this time of the year as the most special because most people are saying, all right, it's football season. We're excited. And then the baseball playoffs start and people say, oh, wow, two things are happening at once. But no, it's three things that are happening at once. This is the NFL season is now heading into week 5. The baseball playoffs begin with the wild card, obviously right here. And hockey season is here. Hockey season is truly here. I'm an October birthday boy, as are you. In fact, Eddie, did we tell everybody our big secret yet? We share the same birthday. All right. So October has always been special for me for that. It's my birthday and it's Eddie's birthday, but also it's Halloween, which I love, but it's the beginning of hockey season. That's how I see October. October to me has always been hockey season. And so you've got the convergence. Mr. October to me, yes, sorry, Reggie Jackson, has always to me really meant, all right, hockey is here. That's how I see it. So I am doing well for that reason, Eddie.
Yeah, it's great. We always, even though we've kind of been apart and split apart and now kind of in a weird way, maybe a little bit back together again, but we've always texted each other on October 16th to say happy birthday. Well, I'll never forget your birthday, Sam. That's for sure. But that is
smart. That's good, Eddie. It's in your back pocket.
I do want to get into how this opportunity happened for you, but I do want to let the audience know about you. I know obviously a bit about you and let me see what my memory is remembering, though. But I know Banana Slug from UC Santa Cruz.
Yes.
Obviously, you and I worked at Fox Sports Radio together for many, many years. You mostly as a producer, but you do have on-air experience. You're very comfortable behind a microphone. You never missed an opportunity to jump in on any of the shows that we worked together and give your opinions, which is awesome. And then we kind of split apart when you went to do Colin Cowherd, and we're a part of producing that show for a while. And then I'll be honest, I've kind of lost track of you a little bit. What has been going on for you lately?
Well, first of all, in regards to this digital space, Eddie, which, by the way, you dominate, and I want to give you your flowers here as well. When you find hockey people in your life, you hold on tight and you never forget. You know, it is a special circle of people who not just enjoy hockey, but also really, truly understand it and have passionate opinions about whether it's rules changes, their own team, whatever it may be. You know, Utah, we'll get to, by the way, I need your opinion on the Utah nickname. We're going to get to that. We've got some preseason games with them coming up, so I need you on this. But you and I have remained, and really our relationship started because of that, I would say, to have a true thread when you find those hockey people, whether it's Kings fans together or even fan of another team. That's the beauty of hockey. When you find people, even though they're fans of other teams, because they love the NHL the way you do, you sort of come together, even though it might be Kings and Ducks and you don't want to, or Kings and Oilers and you don't want to, or in our case, Kings and Flyers, which we'll get into that a little bit. You know, my big secret for Kings Talk will be I grew up a Flyers fan. That was the big part. But Eddie, yes, Colin Cowherd and I, we produced that show. We put it on. We launched that show on FS1. And for 5 years, I had an epic front seat to what Colin did every single day. And Eddie, that Colin really sets the bar when it comes to sports radio. And what is going on in his brain is so special, so unique, and his commitment to his craft is unlike anybody that I've ever worked with. And you and I have worked with some awesome people that we would call friends for life, and that's great. But what Colin does day to day in regards to prepping for that show every day, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And I was thrilled to be a part of it, and I had an awesome time for 5 years. And then I went and ran the digital team at CBS Sports, Eddie. I moved to Connecticut, which is wild, being an LA guy. So I was in Connecticut for 3.5 years running what is now, a lot of people know it. I mean, back before people really knew what a fast channel was, CBS Sports was way ahead of the curve, and they launched CBS Sports HQ. When you go to the CBS Sports app, which many of us have done over the years for fantasy teams or just for stories or score updates or whatnot, CBS Sports and CBS Sports Line, as you remember when you and I growing up in radio, it's one of the best websites around. There were brackets for March Madness. CBS Sports has been at the forefront from a digital standpoint, and they launched this fast channel. And I ran everything we did in the evening from about 6 p.m. till 4 in the morning, whether it was the highlights team, the news team, breaking news alerts, all of that. I ran that very sophisticated team out of Stamford, Connecticut, did that for 3.5 years and absolutely loved it, Eddie, and then had an opportunity to come back to LA. And as you know, another guy that we both love and grew up with in this, Andrew Siciliano, who is a dear friend of mine, and I know he would call you a friend as well, Eddie. Andrew and I got together, and I was helping him out. He wanted to do a little more on YouTube and kind of develop that voice that really truly is his in this digital space. And he and I did that together. You can see us Thinking Out Loud. Siciliano and Sam is the YouTube page, and we have a regular podcast, Thinking Out Loud, with Siciliano and Sam Betesh, and we love that. And I was doing a lot of that and helping a few other people in this YouTube game, and that's where I am now, Eddie. And it came together and converged beautifully. My passion for this league ultimately led me right here to this silver jacket, which I can say is sort of the proudest. I can say it's the proudest item I own, Eddie, is this jacket.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that. And I have not talked to Andrew in a while. We sat together at the Super Bowl years ago when my Steelers beat the Arizona Cardinals, and that was not fun for him. Yeah, Andrew, a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. I'm so happy for him, by the way, doing Browns radio now. What a dream job for him. So let him know I'm really happy for him getting that opportunity next time we talk to him.
I will. So, and speaking of birthdays, which we did just quickly, Andrew got that news on his birthday last year. So imagine that, right? That's pretty special.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that is absolutely amazing. So I do want to ask you real quick. You've been very successful doing things kind of behind the scenes, but you're clearly very comfortable on the mic. Was that something you've always kind of been drawn to, that you've always, yes, you've had opportunities, you've done a lot of amazing things off mic, but clearly it's always been something you've wanted to do too. I know there's an NFL podcast you've been a part of as well.
Yep.
That's kind of something you've always been interested in, I assume, right?
Yeah, Eddie, it's interesting what happens in this business. I would imagine that everybody you would poll at a radio station, if you went there, everybody, no matter what their job is at the radio station, I'm sure if you really went back through their lineage of how they got there, they'd all probably say that at some point they thought they were going to be on the air. I just think that's the natural draw for radio, is that when you're listening and you're thinking, I would like to do that. And then you get close to it and you realize there's many other jobs within it. I always did want to be on the air. I started on the air, and then you get really good at helping other people, and you start to identify people that you can at least admit, all right, this person is at a level that I'm not at yet. And you think, all right, I'm going to help this person be even better. And there's an incredible amount of confidence that you get from that. There's an incredible amount. You think, wow, I'm great at this. I'm helping this other person be great. And there's pride in that. And that was something I always did take great pride in, is being part of a group that could put something together. And then you sort of miss that part that says, well, could I be on the mic that way? Could I be in front of the camera in that way? And you never lose that part of you that wants to perform. And even though you're helping someone else perform, you're not quite doing it yourself. So yes, Eddie, to answer your question quickest, absolutely. It's something I always wanted to do. And being close to it, you know how this is. It feels like you've achieved the dream, even though you're not all the way at it, right? You get close enough and you feel like it's good enough for a while. And then you come to realize, no, actually, I want to take that next step and really truly do it. And here we are. And you're one of those people, Eddie, that I really appreciated the work ethic to what you did. You had an incredible commitment at Fox Sports Radio. By the way, the run that you had at one place, I mean, this is the equivalent of, I got to explain it to people. Kopitar, who is going to retire after this season, 20 years with one team. And then you look across the league and you realize Ovechkin has got the 20 years with one teams. Sidney Crosby in that same situation. How unique. Even the greatest player in this sport, even though he one time had the beautiful jacket and hat that you have, obviously he was an Oiler before that. He's a Ranger and a Blue after that, right? There's so much more to these stories. Most exceptional players in every league end up somewhere else. You had an unprecedented run at one place on the radio, which is just unheard of. And watching you over the years, Eddie, no matter what the assignment, no matter what the show, no matter what changed around you, you showed up and did an impeccable job without ever complaining, which, by the way, in this business is so unique. So I'm watching that from afar and realizing, all right, this is what it takes, right? I'm collecting things from you, Eddie. I'm collecting things even from James Washington, Craig Sheeman, right? JT the Brick, obviously, Andrew Siciliano, Tony Bruno, the people that we grew up around. You realize, okay, that's what I need to get there. And here we are.
Well, you are too kind, but I appreciate that. We are going to get more into this new opportunity for you, talking about you hosting Kings Talk. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. All right, the NFL season is here. I know Sam is extremely happy about his Philadelphia Eagles, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. It fits however you like to bet. Player props, same game parlays, even jump in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It is quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday or your Monday or your Thursday. So if you are ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We are continuing with Sam Betesh. He is the new host of Kings Talk, and we're going to get more into that a little bit later on. But Sam, when I opened up my my Twitter app and I saw the announcement of you as the new Kings Talk host wearing that glorious silver jacket, I had a physical reaction. I was like, "What?" I'm like I said, I'm really happy for you. I'm happy that this has helped us reconnect from many years ago. But how did this opportunity happen for you and the Kings?
So, full disclosure, ESPN LA is that they have the Kings now. Now, when you and I were working together, the Kings were a part of KLAC, which was a Fox affiliate and very close to what we did. To have a radio network as close to a radio station that is an affiliate in a city always makes that relationship somewhat symbiotic, where those two things are working together. And we worked a lot with KLAC. And so over the years, with that opportunity, with being at KLAC, incredibly, Eddie, while I was working with then Steve Hartman, Pat O'Brien, Vic the Brick, during that Kings first run, that 2011-2012 run, Pancake Penner, et cetera. We remember all of it. What a special, amazing time, Jonathan Quick. It just, wow. So during that time, because of that relationship that we had with the Kings station, we wanted to follow that story. It was obviously gaining steam. This 8 seed is running. First of all, what an unprecedented run they had to the final, right? To lose one game to the Canucks, sweeping the Blues, losing one game to the Coyotes, and frankly, having the Devils on the rope, and maybe they were potentially going to set a record for the fewest losses ever on a run to a Stanley Cup, and Devils made it a little interesting at the end. But through that, I was with the team and around the team so much. Eddie, I was on the ice during the Stanley Cup raising. Of all the dreams that you and I could ever have, obviously the first dream, I suppose, would be, maybe we're in net for the Kings and we're lifting the cup because everyone is celebrating what we've done on the ice. And once you're not living that dream, it's all right, could I ever be close enough to the cup in a moment like that? And not only was I, as I've mentioned and sprinkled here, as a Philadelphia person, my dad is from Philadelphia. I was raised on Philadelphia sports. The fact that team had Richards and Carter and Gagne and Justin Williams, guys that had incredible ties to Philadelphia, to be on the ice with players that I grew up rooting for in that way to then win it with the Kings. So I was there with so the Kings remembered me from that. So I was producing, but I also had very much an on-air role during that time because on the show, I was the one sort of explaining to our hosts at the time what everything meant and who the players were and what was significant. The difference, and you and I love this one, Eddie, the difference between, because they're happening simultaneously in the NBA, there's the Western Conference Finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, and then in the NHL, it is the Western Conference Final, not plural, Eastern Conference Final, not plural. I used to explain little differences like that, even when it came to offsides or little controversies that were happening within each series, I would be on the air explaining that. And the Kings always remembered, and Eddie, as you and I spoke about, being a hockey guy, the expression is a fisherman can always spot another fisherman from afar. And that's what the hockey community is, Eddie. So a hockey guy can spot a hockey guy from afar. So there I am within this King circle, and they can see clearly, okay, Sam is a hockey guy. Sam gets us. Sam gets this. And then fast forward to the Kings becoming a part of ESPN LA, which is 710 on the AM dial, but ESPN LA, the app, you can catch them there. And the Kings had their first full season with them last year and now into this season. And the Kings wanted to be more a part of what was happening on ESPN LA. And you and I have a lot of friends that are at ESPN LA now. A lot of people that we knew well from Fox Sports Radio are now at ESPN LA. Yeah. Scott Kaplan, George Sedano. I mean, even John Ireland and Steve Mason spent time at Fox Sports Radio with us, right? Oh, yeah. Travis Rogers, we were in the same building. He was producing Jim Rome for years in the building where Fox Sports Radio was being produced, right? All of these people are dear friends. Chris Morales, a dear friend of ours for years. And he knows Sam's a hockey guy. And so he wanted to have also, Chris and everyone there wanted to have more hockey conversations. And so this conversation began, and it happened with the Kings as well. And collectively, the Kings realized, all right, we can have a host of Kings Talk in this way and have this relationship again with ESPN LA back and forth. And so it really comes down to this, Eddie. The comfort level that a lot of people at ESPN LA had with me helped, and the comfort that I had built with the Kings over those years of winning the Stanley Cup as well and being so close to them during that time, it became obvious to both parties that I could serve in that role.
Well, I'm excited about that because for many, many years, I fought the good fight of trying to get hockey on the national airwaves. And to the credit of a lot of people I worked with, they indulged me in my passion and allowed me to have the hockey minute. And when the Stanley Cup finals were around, to get into at least some of that conversations, which maybe they weren't having in other places because, hockey, we know where it fits in the sports landscape as much as we love it, but just getting it in the conversation in any way is exciting and good, not only for the sport, but for the Kings as well. I do want to get into the Kings a little bit specifically because you and I obviously have been around before two Stanley Cups and now after. The current situation for the Kings is obviously good and bad. Good enough to be in the playoffs 4 years in a row, which is nothing to sneeze at, but obviously losing in the first round 4 years in a row to the same team, the Edmonton Oilers, has been difficult. This offseason, they hire a Hall of Fame GM in Ken Holland. They bring in 5 veteran players who all have experience. Guys like Brian Dumoulin has won cups elsewhere, Corey Perry. What do you think about this offseason for the Kings and trying to now make this season the season that they get that next step?
Well, Eddie, do we look at this as a Bills fan and say 4 trips to the Super Bowl, as the Bills did, was an incredible accomplishment, yet losing 4 Super Bowls is obviously this sort of awful stain that they wear also. And for the Kings to be in the playoffs, as you mentioned, these 4 seasons in a row, but to bow out to the same opponent 4 times obviously has an incredible stain to it. On top of the fact that last season was the first opportunity to host that series, and you couldn't have hosted it any better to start. You're up 2-0. And then game 3 in Edmonton, as you know, Eddie, a lead late in the third period as well. You're staring at a potential 3-0 lead in that series. And by the way, could have won game 3 and could have won game 4 in that. So you could have come back home with the 3-1, and instead it comes back tied, and we know how the series ends. But this team feels like it was close. And I don't know how you stand on this, Eddie. When your team loses to another team, do you root for that team to then win it all? Or do you then hate that team, right? I've always been conflicted on this. Do I hate the team so much I just want to see them gone? Or do I feel better that my team lost to the champion or the runner-up, right?
We've talked about it on this show, and it's conflicted. Some fans feel differently. My thing was, I hope they go to the final and lose, because that's the most difficult wound to take. To go 2 years in a row. I said on this show, I would rather lose in the first round 4 years in a row than go to the finals 2 years in a row and lose, because that wound is deep and scarring. So that's my opinion. But other people feel differently. Other people feel, that they want them to win the cup, because it's like, hey, we lost to the cup champion.
We lost to the champ. Well, I think internally, and certainly for Ken Holland's staff, there's got to be a reality to the idea that the Oilers are now setting the bar in the Western Conference. We can say that pretty definitively, right? I mean, you represent the West twice. That's you're the team. You're the team. And even though in the regular season, they're not necessarily running away with the President's Cup, this is the team that has been where everyone wants to be for 2 seasons in a row. Almost set incredible history with coming back from an 0-3 deficit 2 seasons ago. Obviously, and McDavid named Conn Smythe, which is very rare. As a Philly guy, we have 2 guys on that list. I don't know how I feel about that ultimately. Glad for that trophy. We wanted the other one, of course. But you got to think at that point, Eddie, okay, we're close. We're losing to that team. We're competitive with that team, and that is the team that everybody is striving to be. So it in a way tells you, all right, we are good enough to compete. It's almost a Rams-Eagles thing at the moment, right? To make it about LA a little bit, right? The Rams have to feel like, well, we competed. We had a shot in the snow against Philly. It was their best playoff game. Their closest playoff game in last season's run was that divisional game in the snow. The Rams probably feel like we're really close. And then you're a blocked field goal away from beating them now in the regular season. The Rams feel like, wow, we're really close. The collection we have is close to be that good against the best. And the Kings feel that way. And it's interesting, and these were some numbers that the Kings shared with us. If you look at what the Kings have done last season and you compare it to the averages of the last 5 Stanley Cup champions, the Kings are on par in every category. The only category last season that wasn't really up to snuff was admittedly the power play, which also got much better after the trade deadline. And if you look at the numbers after the trade deadline, they do stack up on par with the teams that are winning it all. So this organization feels that it's very close. If you're asking me about the offseason, the headline for most fans for the offseason, well, number one is going to be Kempe, right? Like that story is to come. And today was big news, the biggest news in the league that we haven't discussed yet, and we don't need to. It's a Kings pod, but obviously, look, the news out of Minnesota is the biggest news around, right? We've sort of set a bar on what a contract matters in this league now, and we know that McDavid's going to be there, and Marner as well, perhaps. But the Kiprusoff news is, I mean, that's all the way there. That's and now that Kempe news is big as well and pending, but the name is Corey Perry in my eyes. Corey Perry, go read Corey Perry's career and take a look. I mean, this guy is the magic potion elixir to making it to the Stanley Cup final, right, Eddie? I mean, this guy, every team this guy's on is in the Stanley Cup final. And we're talking about 5 of 6 Stanley Cup finals. There's Corey Perry. And that's with 3 different teams, Eddie. So it's nice to say you're adding that. And of course, the stain on that story is that he's not healthy to start the season. But Corey Perry's not here for October 7th against the Avalanche, right? Corey Perry's here for a Western Conference final against the Avalanche. That's what you want Corey Perry for. You want Corey Perry for the games that matter, that get you there in the end. So in a way, is he someone now that you get to kind of stash and say trade deadline has a totally different demeanor to it, because we know that Corey Perry is going to be an addition later on to this team. So I love that mix. But you and I know that championships in this league, different than an NFL expression. You know, defense winning championships is not entirely the same statement that it is in the NFL, because it's defense and goaltending. And I want to speak, to both there. What Kemper provided is, I want to ask you really, I mean, what do you think? To me, Kemper has been well above what the expectations could have been. Kemper has solidified that position, and that has not been seen since Quick was here, right?
Certainly.
Yes, absolutely. The blue line is the key, Eddie. We know that it is about the Dumoulin and CC thing is key. That right there, you have to love what you're getting in those 2 guys. So from an offseason perspective of having that, plus the Corey Perry news, plus knowing that Kemper's locked up, even like in Forsberg behind him as well, that says this team is prepared to do what it did last season. Plus, if you look again after the trade deadline with Kuzmenko as well, this team is poised to do something special. Yes, figuring out Edmonton is great, and maybe Corey Perry is that. Maybe he's got tools of the trade from behind the curtain with Edmonton that he can share that's going to make a difference. And again, you have to imagine you're going to run into Edmonton again, right? It may not be the first round again, but to get to the Stanley Cup final, you're going to have to get through Edmonton, clearly. And the Kings should want it, right, Eddie? You don't want another team to knock out Edmonton. I mean, in a way, maybe you do. You figure, okay, if they've been our kryptonite, someone else can get rid of them. But there's also a party that probably says, all right, not 5 in a row. They're not gonna end our season 5 years in a row. We got to do something about that. They probably want that. It feels close. And I'll put a pin in this because I want you to speak here. We can get to the home record, because that was special last season, and I want to speak to that eventually. But go on, Eddie. That's what I think. Anything else that you like about what has happened in this offseason?
Well, I think it certainly hasn't been sexy. I don't think anyone's running to the ticket window to say, I've got to have season tickets to see this team because we've signed this guy. But that doesn't mean that the pieces aren't what the Kings need to have that little bit of extra to get to where they want to go this year. I mean, last year's moves, a lot of people didn't say they were sexy either, but Warren Fogle and Joel Edmondson and Darcy Kemper turned out to be very key additions and made this team better. So I don't think it's unrealistic to think that these pieces, while not sexy, can make the team better. And maybe that's the difference in them getting by whoever in the first round and having a deep playoff run. So Sam mentioned earlier that he was on the ice when the Kings won and were skating around with the Stanley Cup in 2012. We'll see if he remembers where I was while that was going on. We'll do that next year on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com. You'll get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, we are wrapping it up with Sam Betesh, the new host of Kings Talk on 710 ESPN, on the LA Kings app, and wherever you want to get your post-game Kings Talk. So you mentioned you were on the ice when the Kings were skating around with the Stanley Cup. I was hosting Kings Talk at the time. I have hosted Kings Talk. Now you're going to host Kings Talk, so we also have that connection in common. For those who don't remember, the Kings, you mentioned, we had the relationship with the LA Kings because at the time they were on our Fox Sports Radio affiliate, and the Kings asked, do you have a hockey guy over there who could help us out? Yes, hand in the air. Nick Nixon, Daryl Evans, the radio guys want to go celebrate the cup. Would you give us someone to host Kings Talk? I'm like, yes, I would love to do that. And so I was hosting Kings Talk the night the Kings won their first ever Stanley Cup.
Eddie, that is so special. And I do remember because we saw each other during that run. We saw each other at back then Staples numerous times because you and I wanted to be close to that story. There weren't people that understood it as much. And I've said this to you many times. I used to consider Eastern Conference hockey, not Eastern Conference, but East Coast hockey. I used to think was at another level. I grew up rooting for the Flyers, and I always just thought that they took it more serious. The Kings have changed all that. Kings are a legitimate Stanley Cup contender in my eyes every season. After winning it as an 8 seed, first of all, that tells you that if you get in, you can do it. And what they've done with this organization tells me that. And I remember, you and I could understand, you as a Kings fan and me as a hockey fan, even at the time, could just understand how special it was that potentially not just in Southern California, but for the Kings, because the Ducks had won one, which obviously I know was a little bit of a craw in everyone's cap that it was the Ducks and not the Kings that were able to win one, right? We thought for Southern California, as close as Gretzky had gotten in 93, we certainly never thought another team was going to win the cup before the Kings. It happened. But the way the Kings did it, for that building, by the way, which was so accustomed to championships, and it always seemed as if it was just, okay, Clippers aren't going to do it, Kings aren't going to do it. It was a Lakers building. That changed all of that. And you and I could sense how special that was. So we wanted to be close to that. And for you to be there that night in such an impressive role, I mean, in many ways, I was riding the coattails of the experience. I was helping to produce what we were doing back then. And I was sort of the hockey guy during the week with our show. But we wanted to be close to that because it feels like a once in a lifetime. First of all, the fact that the Kings then did it again is remarkable. That is such a tremendous story that you were there in that way. And I had remembered seeing you. I thought you were what I thought, Eddie, I had remembered it as you were filing updates for Fox Sports Radio. I thought you were providing sort of the game. It was the game 6 for that when they beat the Devils in that game. But I thought you were providing game 6 updates for, we're going to see potentially the cup tonight at Staples Center. And I thought that's what you're doing. But the fact that it was Kings Talk is so much more special now that we're having this conversation.
No doubt about it. And it was the easiest job I've ever had. I just said, hey, welcome to Kings Talk. How happy are you? And people just celebrating and crying and enjoying something that some of us thought we weren't totally sure we'd ever see. So obviously an amazing night. Real quick, Sam, unfortunately, we're kind of up against it here, but I got to ask you, Anze Kopitar, 20 seasons, final season for him. It's been an amazing journey to the Hall of Fame coming up for him. I've said he's the greatest LA King of all time, drafted by the team, developed his whole career with the team. Just your quick thoughts on Anze Kopitar.
Well, Eddie, you and I can start this. I think the proper statue. Now, look, there's an incredible mural statue of the Kings winning the cup. Obviously, we have Bob Miller, Luc Robitaille, and Wayne Gretzky outside of crypto. Don't you think it's appropriate that we would have a Kopitar, Brown, Doughty, Quick statue? I think maybe the 4 together would really represent what happened. The most special seasons of the Kings in their history would be represented by a statue of those 4. So you sort of can't tell the story of one without the others. But the fact that Kopitar is going to be the one that held on, that is going to retire as a King. I mean, trade deadline, sure, something could happen, but most likely this is going to be where he retires as a King. To me, I can't separate from Gretzky. I don't want to be part of a conversation where I'm saying that Gretzky is not greater or best than a number 1. I want that to be the case. When you talk about King's accomplishments, he's likely going to finish this season, Eddie, as most points. He's already, here's the amazing part, he has the most assists of any King ever, and we know that Wayne Gretzky has the most assists in the entire league. In fact, if you took away Gretzky's goals and just had his assists, he'd have the most points in the league. We all know that incredible statistic. So the idea that Kopitar is ahead of Gretzky in a category about assists, it begins to tell me, wow, I mean, if Kopitar is going to set every record from a scoring standpoint for this franchise, it's hard to say that, Eddie. Can I put a pin in it and say, I mean, again, he got the 2 cups and Gretzky didn't. But what Gretzky did is still so significant because it's not as if Gretzky wasn't a King at the end of his career, right? That would have been different. Gretzky just happened to be a King, but that's not the case. Gretzky, you could largely say that the Ducks and maybe even the Coyotes exist because of what Gretzky brought to the West Coast from a hockey perspective. And then to have that cup final appearance, also legendary. So I'm still going to say, I still would rather be on the record to say that Gretzky is I just don't know a sentence where I want to have Gretzky not being greatest. Does that make sense as a hockey fan?
It does. I've always separated saying Wayne Gretzky is the most influential LA King of all time. But I think to be a great player of a franchise, I think for me, you have to be drafted by that team and you have to play your whole career with that team. For me, Gretzky is an Oiler first and a King second. So that's there. Maybe we're splitting hairs here. I totally understand what you're saying. There are people that would agree with you about Gretzky because of his influence, because of how he made the Kings something special in Southern California. But like I said, for me personally, the whole thing, the whole chapter, everything, start to finish, King, that makes him the greatest LA King to me. But I understand exactly what you're saying. And there are other people that feel the same way that you do. Sam, we could talk all day, and I would love doing it, but it was great to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely hope we can do it several more times this season.
We will, Eddie. And just before you wrap up, I only want to say
yeah.
one thing because I want to invite you. First of all, I mean, you'll be on Kings Talk with me. That will happen for sure. But I also want to invite you and everyone that's listening. And by the way, thank you for doing this for the Kings, Eddie. Daily Kings Talk is crucial. It'll be a huge part of what I do. It's already been a huge part of what I do to consume this. But October 4th is the final preseason game on Saturday, Eddie. And after that game with the Ducks, there is an LA Kings festival at Crypto. Hang out, meet players, meet part of the front office, hang out with me. And Eddie, if you show up, people can hang out with you as well. It's for the fans. It's an LA Kings festival really for the fans, but to celebrate the season before it happens. And let's say it, once Kopitar let it out of the bag, it's sort of the beginning of the celebration of Kopitar as well. So LA Kings Festival after the Ducks game, the final preseason game on October 4th on Saturday. Come hang out with me. Eddie, certainly, of course, if you're there, I would love that as well. But honestly, everyone that's watching, let's make it happen.
Absolutely. I will be there, and I'll be excited to see you and any fans that want to come up and say hello as well. That'll do it. He is Sam Betesh. You can follow him on X and Twitter, by the way, at Sammy Betesh. And of course, you can hear him as the host of Kings Talk, 710 ESPN Radio, streaming on the 710 app, the LA Kings app as well, all season long. It will start with the season opener next Tuesday against the Colorado Avalanche. Sam, excited for this opportunity for you. Excited about the upcoming NHL season, and I'm glad we're going to kind of be a part of it together. So thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Eddie, an early happy birthday. How about that?
Same to you. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. For your everydayers, those who listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day. Coming up, our next show, we'll be talking all about the Kings' next preseason game. We didn't get a chance to talk to Sam about the Utah Mammoth. We'll get into that maybe some other time. But they'll be playing the Mammoth in Boise, Idaho, and we'll be talking about that game afterwards and see what significance comes from that. As always, at the end of the week, we have our fan feedback show. You want to be a part of that. The email address, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love your comments in the comments section. Follow us on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked On LA Kings. All right. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.